When Eddard Stark kneeled in the hall of the Red Keep, surrounded by Lannister guards, he felt a weight settle in his bones, not fear, but betrayal. His honor had brought him here, but now he could see it. Honor alone would not save him, or his daughters. The throne room was heavy with silence. King Robert was dead. Joffrey sat on the throne like a boy playing with fire. And Peter Baelish, smug and calculating, stood to the side with his usual snake's smile. "Bend the knee, Lord Stark," Cersei had said, "for your daughter's sake." But Ned Stark had made a choice, not just for himself, but for the North, for his blood, and for the truth. Instead of kneeling, he stood, with a sharp signal to Jory Cassel, his most trusted man. Everything changed. In a blink, Jory drew steel and drove it straight through the first guard's throat. Screams erupted. Chaos broke out. Ned unsheathed his sword, not ice, but a smaller blade he kept close. The Lannister guards hadn't expected this. They thought the wolf was cornered. But wolves bite hardest when they're wounded. Baelish stumbled back, eyes wide. "You're mad, Ned!" he shouted, but Ned didn't even look at him. Cersei's face lost all color. Her lips trembled with rage, and she barked, "Kill him! Kill them all!" The guards surged forward. Jory fought like a storm. Ned moved with the strength of Winterfell in his blood. Then came a howl, low and deadly, a direwolf's cry. The doors burst open, and Nymeria, Arya's wolf, lunged in. Blood sprayed as she tore into a soldier's throat. How she had gotten into the Red Keep no one knew, but Ned did. He'd sent word to Arya weeks ago, and Arya had hidden Nymeria in the woods, waiting. The wolf had waited, and now she struck. "Sansa! Arya!" Ned shouted. He could barely see them through the crowd, both daughters shoved into a corner by Lannister men. Arya's face was wild with fear, but focused. She hadn't screamed, hadn't cried. Sansa, pale and frozen, looked like she'd just seen the gods abandon her. "Run!" Ned roared to Arya. "Find Syrio! Go!" Arya bolted, swift as a shadow. As she darted away, her small hand snatched a dagger from a fallen guard's belt. In the main hall, the fighting grew bloodier. Lannister reinforcements stormed in. Sir Meryn Trant joined the fray, cutting down Stark men left and right. Still, Jory held the line beside Ned, slashing at anything in gold and red. And then Jaime Lannister entered, golden armor shining, long hair flowing, and that arrogant smirk still on his lips. The Kingslayer moved through the madness, like a dancer among corpses. Cersei shouted, "End it, Jaime! Kill the traitor!" But Jaime didn't rush. He took in the scene. Ned bloodied but standing tall, Lannister guards dead around him. And a direwolf prowling nearby. "You really thought this would work?" Jaime asked as he drew his sword. "I thought I'd die with my dignity," Ned replied. Their swords met with a crash that rang through the keep. Jaime's style was quick, elegant, ruthless. He was faster, sharper, but Ned's strikes were heavy, calculated, and full of purpose. It wasn't just skill versus skill. It was legacy versus arrogance. "You're no king's hand anymore," Jaime sneered mid-fight. "Just a dead man with a wolf's pride." Ned's blade slashed across Jaime's chest, drawing blood. "And you're still a man who killed his king in the back." That wiped the smirk off Jaime's face. As Arya disappeared down a corridor with Syrio Forel waiting, Sansa remained in the hall, paralyzed. Her eyes met her father's for one brief second. She didn't move, didn't run, just cried. Ned couldn't afford to look back again. Jaime Lannister lunged again, his blade flashing like lightning. Ned blocked the strike, but it rattled his arm to the bone. Jaime was fast. Faster than anyone Ned had ever fought, but he wasn't fighting to protect anything. He was fighting for pride. Ned, on the other hand, was fighting for his daughters, for the North, for truth. Steel clanged on steel. Around them, the throne room was chaos. Lannister guards were swarming in from every entrance, their red cloaks like fire creeping through the halls. Jory Cassell held off 3 men near the steps of the Iron Throne, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. The direwolf, Nymeria, was a blur of fangs and fury. Keeping the guards at bay near the entrance, Jaime circled Ned, breathing hard but grinning. "You've got spirit, Stark. I almost respect it. Almost. Then come find out what Northern steel feels like, Kingslayer," Ned growled. They clashed again. Jaime tried to feint left and spin right, but Ned didn't fall for it. He caught Jaime's sword mid-swing with a brutal block that sent sparks flying, then slammed the pommel of his blade into Jaime's jaw. Jaime staggered back, spitting blood, but even as he stumbled, Jaime laughed. "This is madness. You'll die here." "Maybe," Ned said, panting, "but not before I take a lion or 2 with me." Just as he raised his sword again, a loud horn blew from the outer courtyard. Everyone froze. Jaime narrowed his eyes. What now? It was the gold cloaks, the city watch. Dozens of them flooded in, and for a moment Ned felt a flicker of hope. He'd sent a message to Commander Janos, Slint days ago, promising loyalty and honor in return for support. He thought he could count on them. But then came the betrayal. Janos Slint himself stepped into the hall, and his voice rang out clear. "In the name of King Joffrey Baratheon, seize Eddard Stark." Ned's blood ran cold. The gold cloaks turned on him. Not the Lannisters, not the traitors. Him. "Damn you, Baelish," Ned whispered. Somewhere in the shadows, Littlefinger was surely smiling. The city watch charged. Jory shouted, "Fall back, Lord Stark, go!" But it was too late. The gold cloaks hit like a wave, knocking Ned off balance. Jaime disappeared into the swarm, probably happy to let someone else finish the job. Jory fought like a madman, slicing down 2 guards before a spear drove into his chest. He collapsed with a groan, blood pooling beneath him. Ned tried to reach him, but a club struck him behind the knee. He buckled, falling to one side. Another blow landed on his back, then another. He swung blindly, catching someone in the leg, but there were too many. Nymeria leapt into the fray, tearing into a gold cloak's throat, but another guard stabbed her in the side. She yelped and staggered, blood matting her fur, and then darkness. Someone slammed a pommel into Ned's head, and everything went black. Far away in the servants' corridor beneath the Red Keep, Arya ran barefoot and shaking. Syrio Forel was at her side, keeping quiet, listening for every footstep, every voice. "They'll be looking for you now, little one," Syrio whispered. "You must vanish like a shadow." "I'm not leaving without my father," she snapped. Tears in her eyes. "Your father would rather die than see you captured. You know that." Arya stopped running. Her fists were clenched, her chest heaved. "Then I'll kill every Lannister I see." Syrio's hand rested on her shoulder. "Not today. Today we escape. Tomorrow you become a killer." They disappeared, into the dark, deeper into the belly of the city. Back in the throne room, Sansa Stark stood frozen. Her eyes were locked on the bloodied floor, the chaos, the bodies. Ned was unconscious, chained. Jory was dead. The direwolf was gone. Cersei walked up to her slowly. "You saw what happens to traitors, little dove," she said softly. Sansa didn't respond. Her lips trembled. "You want to save your father?" Cersei asked. "Then you must learn how this game is played." And Sansa, heartbroken and trembling, nodded. "Good girl," Cersei purred. "Now tell us, did your father speak of treason, of taking the throne for Stannis?" Sansa hesitated, then looked up and said, "Yes." And just like that, the game took another victim. The dungeons beneath the Red Keep were colder than Winterfell's crypts. Damp stone walls oozed with mold. Rats scurried in the shadows, and the stink of rot hung heavy in the air. Eddard Stark lay on the floor, wrists shackled, blood dried. On his brow, his head throbbed, his knee pulsed with fire, but it wasn't the pain that hurt him most. It was the weight of failure. He'd fought. He'd stood tall, and still he'd lost. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. A lantern flickered against the walls. Ned pushed himself up slowly as the cell door creaked open. Cersei Lannister entered, wrapped in green silk, her golden hair glowing like fire in the dim light. Behind her stood 2 gold cloaks and Maester Pycelle, who looked everywhere but at Ned. "You fought bravely," Cersei said, her voice smooth and controlled, "but it was foolish. You should have bent the knee." Ned didn't reply. She walked closer, her heels tapping sharply on the stone. "Now look at you, chained like a common criminal. Your men are dead, your wolf gone, and your daughters. One is missing and the other, well, she's learning quickly how the world truly works. That cut deeper than any sword. What have you done with them?" Ned rasped. "Sansa is safe," Cersei said. "She's at court, under our protection. And Arya—" She paused, letting the silence twist the knife. "Vanished. Perhaps she escaped the city, or perhaps someone else found her." Ned's fists clenched. Cersei knelt down, bringing her face closer to his. "You're lucky," she whispered. "Joffrey wanted your head the moment you raised your sword. But I'm offering you a chance. Publicly confess your treason. Swear. Loyalty to the new king, and I'll let you take the black." Ned blinked. "The wall? Yes, you'll live. Sansa will be spared. Arya, if she's found, will be unharmed. The North will stay quiet, but defy me again, and your daughters." Wildy screaming. He stared at her. "You think you've won?" "I have won, Lord Stark," she said coldly. "I'm not asking you to grovel. I'm telling you to survive." She stood, gave a curt nod to Pycelle, and turned away. The door shut behind her. The silence. Ned leaned his head against the cold wall, and for the first time in years he felt helpless. In the labyrinthine alleys of King's Landing, Arya crept like a ghost. Her hair was filthy, her dress torn. She moved through shadows, eyes sharp, dagger hidden beneath her cloak. She hadn't spoken in hours. Syrio Forel led her through the darker parts of the city, where even gold cloaks hesitated to go. Flea Bottom, the black cells, the riverfronts where bodies floated and no one asked questions. "You must learn to be no one," Syrio said, "to disappear in plain sight." "I want to be Arya Stark," she muttered, "and Arya Stark is being hunted. But a nameless girl, she can go anywhere, even to Winterfell." They found shelter in an abandoned candlemaker's shop. At night, Syrio gave her old fruit to eat and whispered tales of bravos and water dancing. By day, she watched the city from rooftops, learning its twists and traps, but her dreams were always the same. Her father screaming, Jory bleeding, Nymeria howling, and in every dream she stood frozen, unable to save anyone. At court, Sansa wore blue silk and braided her hair like a true lady of the South, but nothing felt real. She moved like a puppet, saying the words they wanted, smiling at Cersei, pretending to be the sweet, broken girl. But inside, her heart was ashes. They made her sit beside Joffrey during council meetings. Once, he squeezed her hand too hard and whispered, "If your father lies again, I'll make you watch his execution." She didn't cry, not anymore, but that night she wrote a letter, a secret letter, to Robb Stark in Winterfell. "Come with your banners. Come before it's too late. Father is imprisoned. They've lied about him. I'm trapped here. Arya is missing. Come soon, Robb, please." She folded it, sealed it with wax, and bribed a kitchen boy to send it north with a merchant caravan. She didn't know if it would reach, but it was all she could do. Back in his cell, Ned looked up as another visitor arrived. This time it was Varys, dressed in black, silent as smoke. "You played your hand boldly," the spider said, "and you nearly changed the game." "Why are you here?" Ned asked hoarsely. "To offer what little truth still exists in this viper's nest. Your daughter Sansa, alive. Arya, uncertain. The Queen offers you the wall, but Joffrey, he is not so forgiving." Ned stared at him. "Then, what do I do?" Varys sighed. "You die or you bend. It's that simple." Snow fell gently over Winterfell's stone walls as Robb Stark stood in the godswood, holding Sansa's letter in his gloved hands. His breath steamed in the cold air. Grey Wind, his direwolf, paced restlessly nearby, sensing his master's turmoil. Catelyn stood across from her son, eyes locked on the page. "They've taken your father," she said quietly. "Your sisters are hostages. They're calling him a traitor." Robb's jaw tightened. "He tried to protect the realm, and they call him the traitor." Maester Luwin approached, his voice cautious. "If we march, it means war. Against the crown, against the Lannisters. You'll be committing the North to blood." Robb crumpled the letter in his fist. "They drew first blood," he said. "They executed Jory. They tried to kill Arya. They've caged my father and turned my sister into a prisoner in silk." Catelyn stepped closer, placing a hand on her son's shoulder. "If you go south," she warned, "you might never come back, and you may not be able to save them." "I have to try," Robb replied. "For father, for Arya, for Sansa. If we sit here, waiting, we'll be next." That night the banners of the North were raised. Horns were blown from Bear Island to White Harbour. From the crags of the Rills to the snows of Last Hearth, men swore their swords to House Stark. Robb Stark, just a boy in the eyes of many, became something more. He became the young wolf. Back in King's Landing, Arya crouched in a ruined bell tower, watching a Lannister guard below slap a beggar girl for begging too close to the castle gates. She'd followed him for 3 days. He was the one who'd laughed when Jory was killed, the one who called Ned Stark just another northern dog. Now he was drunk, alone, and Arya was ready. Syrio had warned her, "You take a life, you take the weight. Are you ready for that weight?" She hadn't answered then, but now her dagger was in her hand, and the guard was staggering down a dead-end alley. She moved like Syrio taught her, light as air, quick as a shadow. Her heart pounded like a drum. Her breath caught in her throat. She struck from behind. One clean stab. The blade sank into the soft spot between ribs. The man grunted, tried to turn, but Arya twisted the knife like Syrio had shown her. He dropped, coughing, gasping, and then, still. She stepped back, staring at what she'd done. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she just ran. That night, she didn't sleep. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, but something inside her had hardened. The first name on her list was gone, and it would not be the last. In the Red Keep's dungeons, Ned lay awake, staring at the stone ceiling. Every word Varys had said echoed in his mind. Bend the knee, say the lie, live. He'd lived his whole life by honor, but honor hadn't saved his men. It hadn't saved his daughters. And it wouldn't save him now. When the guards came for him in the morning, he expected chains. Instead, they brought him to a warm chamber where Sansa sat waiting. Her face was pale and hollow. She didn't run to hug him. She only whispered, "Please, Father, do what they say." His heart broke all over again. Cersei entered moments later, flanked by Pycelle and Varys. "It's your choice, Lord Stark. Confess, swear loyalty to King Joffrey. Say you tried to usurp the throne, and you'll live out your days at the Wall." Ned didn't answer. She continued, "Or stay silent and your daughters will suffer the consequences." That was the blade that cut deepest. Not for himself, but for his children. He looked into Sansa's tear-filled eyes and felt his decision settle like cold iron in his chest. "I will do what is necessary," he said quietly. Cersei smiled. "Good. The court will hear your confession." At midday, Varys leaned in close, his voice like a whisper from the shadows. "You'll live, Lord Stark, but you won't be Eddard Stark anymore. That man will die today." Ned nodded once. "Then let him die." The sun burned over King's Landing like it never had before. The plaza before the great sept of Baelor was packed with thousands. Commoners, lords, and knights jostled for space, their faces slick with sweat and curiosity. They weren't there for worship. They were there for a show. At the steps of the sept, a wooden stage had been built. Gold cloaks lined the edges. The Iron Throne's newest king, Joffrey Baratheon, sat smugly beside his mother, a twisted little crown glinting atop his head. Cersei whispered in his ear, her smile calm, but her fingers tight on the armrest. Beside them stood Grand Maester Pycelle, Varys, and Sir Elyn Payne, the king's justice, silent as ever, with his massive greatsword resting at his side. And in the shadows, Littlefinger watched, eyes sharp, face unreadable. They brought Ned Stark out in chains. The crowd roared, some booed, some cried out in confusion, and others simply leaned forward, eager for whatever bloody spectacle might follow. He looked thin, bruised, older than his years. But he walked without limping. His eyes scanned the crowd, not for enemies, but for his daughters. He found Sansa near the royal platform, dressed in blue silk, pale, crying. He didn't see Arya, but in truth she was there, hidden in the crowd, disguised as a butcher's boy, her short hair tangled and her clothes filthy. Syrio had warned her not to come, but Arya never listened. Priest stepped forward. Lord Eddard Stark has been found guilty of treason against King Joffrey, of plotting with Stannis Baratheon to steal the throne. But his grace is merciful. Ned stared at the stone beneath his feet. Then he looked up. His voice, when it came, was hoarse but strong. I am Eddard Stark. I was the hand of the king to Robert Baratheon. I came here with honor, and that honor nearly destroyed my family. He paused. His jaw tightened. I betrayed the crown, he said at last. The words tasted like poison. I conspired with Stannis. I sought to seize power, but the gods were just, and I accept their judgment. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Sansa covered her mouth in horror. Arya's hands balled into fists. Cersei gave a subtle nod. It is done, she whispered to Joffrey. But Joffrey leaned forward, his smile widened. My mother says mercy is for the weak, he said loudly, rising to his feet. My mother wants Lord Stark sent to the wall. Cersei's head snapped toward him, alarmed. Joffrey, no! But I am the king, he said, turning to the crowd, drunk on power. And a king who lets traitors live is no king at all. He pointed at Ned. Sir Elyn, bring me his head. The crowd erupted. Sansa screamed. Cersei lunged toward her son, furious, but he shoved her back. Varys moved forward, trying to speak, but Sir Elyn was already drawing the great sword. Ned didn't flinch. He turned his head and looked to the sky, perhaps imagining snow or wolves or home. Shria, 10 feet away, tried to push forward through the crowd, but Syrio had warned her. If you see your father die, do not cry, do not run, do not speak, become no one. She bit her lips so hard it bled, and then the blade fell. The plaza went silent. Ned Stark's head rolled down the steps, and the crowd shrank back as blood poured. Across the stone, Sansa collapsed. Arya turned and vanished into the alleyways like smoke. Cersei stood frozen. She had lost control of the beast she created, and Joffrey. He sat down, smiling, proud, but the North had eyes. At Moat Cailin, word reached. Robb Stark. He stood in the rain, holding the message. His men waited in silence. Great John Umber, Rickard Karstark, and Rose Bolton stood by. He confessed, the messenger said, and still they killed him. Robb didn't speak. His face was unreadable. Then quietly he said, We march. The men around him roared. Swords were raised, banners were lifted. The Wolf of the North was no longer a boy, and in the days that followed, Lannister scouts would speak of a strange terror, of a dire wolf with eyes like burning coals stalking their camps, of soldiers going missing at night, of a boy with ice in his heart leading an army of vengeance. The riverlands burned. Smoke rose from villages and farmsteads, and the Red Fork ran red with blood. War had come swiftly after Ned Stark's execution, and with it vengeance. Robb Stark was no longer a boy. His army marched like thunder, over 30,000 strong, their banners black and grey, each bearing the direwolf of House Stark. He no longer smiled, no longer hesitated. At the Trident, he won his first battle by outflanking Sir Stafford Lannister's host with brutal precision. Grey wind tore through the Lannister scouts at night, leaving fear in his wake. After the victory, the lords began calling him the King in the north. But Robb didn't care about crowns. He cared about the head they had taken, his father's. He wanted Lannister blood, and no one was safe. In the sewers beneath King's Landing, Arya moved like a whisper. She hadn't spoken in days, not even to the baker's boy, who'd helped her escape the square after Ned's execution. Her hands were dirty, her eyes hollow. But her heart had turned to stone. Syrio was gone. She'd watched the gold cloaks drag his broken body out of the training yard days ago. He had bought her escape with his life. She remembered what he said. There is only one God, and his name is death, and there is only one thing we say to death. Not today, she whispered to herself, again and again, like prayer. She had stolen a blade from a butcher's stall, small but sharp. She wore boys' clothes, ate rats, slept beside corpses in the alleys, and every night she recited the names Joffrey, Cersei, Ill Pain, Meryn Trant, Littlefinger. One day, she told herself, they would all die. Sansa was broken. After Ned's death, Joffrey had taken her leash in both hands. He forced her to stand beside his throne, to smile while her father's head rotted on the Red Keep's walls. He made her watch as the crows circled, made her look. Cersei tried to calm him, to shield Sansa, but it was too late. The boy king revelled in cruelty. Once when she asked to go home, Joffrey had her stripped and beaten in front of the court, but she didn't cry anymore. She had learned silence. She had learned masks, and behind those quiet eyes, something darker began to grow. In the west, Tywin. Lannister seethed. Ned Stark's execution had been rash. Joffrey's stunt had thrown the realm into chaos. The north was at war. The river lords had joined them. Even House Frey had offered passage in exchange for promises Robb had no choice. But to make, Tywin sat in his tent sipping wine, speaking to Tyrion. My grandson is a fool. My daughter is weak, and now the wolves are loose. Tyrion raised an eyebrow. You wanted war, father. Now you have it. Tywin stood slowly. I wanted control. Instead, I have rebellion. Then came the raven, sealed in grey wax. The young. Wolf had captured Jaime Lannister, the golden lion chained in the North's claws. At River Run, Robb paced in the great hall. Jaime knelt before him, bruised and bloodied, his smirk gone. You killed my father, Robb said flatly. No, Jaime muttered. I wanted to, but your king, your sweet little king, he beat me to it. Robb turned to Catelyn. What should we do with him? Her eyes were steel. He's worth more alive than dead, but if he escapes, you'll never sleep again. Robb nodded. He walked toward Jaime, knelt beside him and whispered, If you try to run, I'll send your head to Cersei in a box, just like they did to my father. Then he stood and gave the order, Send ravens, tell the realm. The North remembers. And far beyond the narrow sea, in a land of ash and dragons, a silver-haired girl heard whispers of a wolf king rising, of a dead lord who'd once honored his word in court. Daenerys Targaryen stood beneath the stars, clutching the tiny dragon on her shoulder. One day, she thought, all of them would burn.